What's up, chat? What's up, chat? What's up? How y'all doing today? How y'all feeling? What's going on? What's the word with you? Golly, where my sound stuff? Top of the morning, top of the morning, top of the morning. Yo, what's the word? What's the word? Hey, y'all already know what it is, man. Let me turn this down. Y'all already know what it is, man. It's your friendly neighborhood mushroom, man. It's your boy, Max Schumann. We back in the building again. Okay, there we go. There we go. All right. So, today, chat, we're going to do things a little bit different, right? I got some videos lined up for you guys. And, yeah, best believe it's about to get absolutely wicked. Oh, my God, excuse me. So today we're going to wind up watching 3 videos, and I really don't even know what to really tell you. The first one is going to be absolutely crazy. Here, I'm going to pull it up. Cue it up, cue it up. All right, Chad, let's get right into it. Let's get right into it. So, boom, here we have it. Today's video is going to be called When Teacher Shoots Up a School. What the heck? All right, so, Chad, I could never imagine this, like, happening from a teacher, bro. Like, are you serious? Let's get right into it.
A previously well-loved professor started to sour his image in front of his students after derailing class again and again to talk about his obsession with Las Vegas and to hit on female students.
Bro, what's your problem? Already, off the bat, bro. Off the bat, you being a goofy.
It has become more and more common for students in the United States to take out their hatred on schools. It isn't often that a professor will do the same. I think we've all had at least one professor or teacher throughout our lives that couldn't really stick to the coursework and instead spent the class period rambling on about their personal life. What's much less common is that professor ends up becoming a rage-fueled maniac, dead set on carrying out some sort of attack against his associates. Why though, you might ask, and for that, let's start back at the beginning. Anthony James Polito, who went by Tony, was born in 1956. Born and raised in North Carolina, he would live there for most of his life. Little is known about his childhood, but we do know that he worked for East Carolina University from 1992 to 1994. Working as a professor of business, this would be the beginning of his long career working at various universities throughout the U.S. During his stint at the university, he was arrested on a charge of computer trespass in Virginia, which is an accusation similar to a charge of hacking. Leaving ECU after 2 years of work, he then worked at the University of Georgia until 1999. He then worked for 1 semester at Brenau University before working at the University of Northern Iowa until 2001. Then, finally, he went back to work for East Carolina University for the next 16 years as a tenured associate professor in the Department of Marketing and Supply Chain Management. All throughout his tenure at ECU in Greenville, Tony was actually well known as a popular, albeit strange, professor. While like any professor out there, he had some students who didn't quite like him here and there, he was very well liked for the most part. Part of what made Tony so strange was how lax his classes really were. He didn't take attendance, didn't require the students to buy the textbook, and didn't give many tests. Instead of using his university email address or some sort of a...
Wait, he didn't require the students to buy the textbook? Man, he was the man, bro.
system within the university, Tony preferred his students to contact him through his personal website and email. One of Tony's students who attended his class, called Introduction to Operations Management, Paul Whittington, later spoke of how these classes played out. He said that the whole first month of the class consisted entirely of talking about the syllabus. After that, Tony preferred to use each class to tell the students stories about his favorite topic on Earth, Las Vegas. Tony was an absolute fiend for anything Vegas, having dozens and dozens of stories about his time on the Strip and out in the desert to tell his students day in and day out. Paul, saying that the class was the most unconventional that he had ever attended, later said, "I think he went at the end of every semester, so at least twice a year. He would talk about all the hotels that he stayed in, all the restaurants he would go to, all the clubs and shopping places he would go to, maybe some friends that he had made, people he went to visit when he was out there. That was the class. If you could imagine a college class where you just relive someone's vacation, like, that was kind of his class. It was all we talked about from the start of the class to the end of it." This wasn't an outlier for that
Mind you, that you have to actually pay to go to college. You had to pay for this. To relive his weird little vacation experiences. That's wild.
particular class either. Some of his other previous students have reiterated very much of the same, with another who attended his marketing class saying, "He would talk about going to Vegas all the time. He would give us students, like, pointers on when to go, areas to stay, things like that." Other students said that, over time, Tony came to demand perfection of his students. For instance, if a student was asked to print out some documents for him, they would be heavily criticized if the print was misaligned even slightly, being ordered to start them all over from square one. In 2011, there was a shooting scare on campus, and due to that, the whole place went into lockdown for a while. However, it was only a misunderstanding. It turns out that what somebody had reported to be a gun turned out to be nothing more than an umbrella in the end. Shortly after, Tony demonstrated his lack of ability to read the room when he gifted some of his students an umbrella as a joke.
Bro, what?
Women in Tony's classes tended to have a fairly different experience than the men, if they were hot, that is. One woman who began to attend his classes ran into him on the elevator.
I'm sorry that ladies have to go through this. I'm really absolutely sorry. On behalf of all men, I could only imagine getting trapped in an elevator with a creep. Oh my God. Chat, what the heck?
By coincidence before they formally met in the classroom. This led to an excited conversation on Tony's part and something of an intern position for the woman. Tony started to go above and beyond to help her with whatever she needed. During one point when he was helping her with her resume, she began to feel that his intentions weren't so pure, saying, "I initially brought my resume and my cover letters and stuff, like just for him to review, but it slowly became apparent that it was not as innocent." From that point onward, Tony would continue to contact the woman every single day for the entire semester, either through email or by phone or by text. He started bringing her gifts, and by the end of the semester invited her to his usual end-of-semester Las Vegas trip. Feeling very uncomfortable, she declined the offer and began to distance herself. Tony started to develop a new obsession, and that was reviews that his students would leave about him. Not only were there the usual end-of-term professor reviews that a lot of universities give out, but the website Rate My Professor had also been growing in popularity. Tony would take the majority of the positive reviews from that website and upload them to his own personal website as well. Not content with only posting them on his website, he would obsessively bring up the reviews during class time as well, often presenting them to the students as a badge of honor and awkwardly asking the students to discuss their thoughts on them. However, while Tony did enjoy talking about the positive reviews, he took much more of an obsession with the negative ones. None of the negative reviews were that particularly scathing, with one reading, "Funny teacher but extremely disorganized. Tell students about real-life experiences to help you understand better. We'll tell stories for the first few months, but then we'll give multiple tests in the last month based off the textbook." Still though, Tony couldn't handle receiving a bad review of any sort. He would do his best to figure out which of his students had left these negative anonymous reviews by heavily analyzing their writings and any past interactions they may have had together. He would often make comments about these negative reviews in class and openly point out which students he thought had left them. Tony had grown fairly active on social media as well, with most of his writings predictably revolving around Las Vegas, the state of Nevada in general, and various conspiracy theories he believed in. He was also more than happy to brag about his self-proclaimed 160 IQ and boast of his membership in Mensa International. On his YouTube channel, he only posted 3 videos, all of which were room tours of Las Vegas hotels. He followed a few channels, those being of political commentators, Vegas travel blogs, and porn stars. Rather than on social media, though, he would often focus more on his personal website. The website looked like something straight out of 1998, being mostly a plain text wall of various links on one single page. All over the page, his ego seeps through, with much of the content consisting of brags in one way or another. While his website seemed to have originally been intended to serve as a resume of sorts, it quickly evolved into something quite different. The resume-style section at the top of the page came to be completely dwarfed by the massive pool of pages listed underneath. He featured links to anything he found interesting in any capacity. A lot were related to his field, the news, and shopping. Of course, many of the links involved travel and Las Vegas. He had a whole section dedicated to shaving supplies and another for cufflinks. One section was entirely dedicated to, as he titled it, Powerful Organizations Bent on Global Domination. This was a list of what most people consider to be just that. The Skull and Bones, Bohemian Grove, the Illuminati, and more. All in all, a very basic list of average conspiracy theories. More interesting, though, was the section in which he claimed to solve many of the world's mysteries himself. For instance, he claimed that he had solved the mystery of the Zodiac Killer and proved his identity. He also believed that he knew what happened with Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 and claimed to have figured out the identity of what he called the mysterious skyscrapers in Las Vegas. He also seemed to take a keen interest in the 2001 anthrax attacks. And
what is he talking about, the mysterious buildings in Las Vegas? What is that? What is that even about?
Which many envelopes containing the dangerous white powder were sent to various people throughout the United States. In addition to links, Tony wrote quite a bit of the content on the website himself. On one page called Statement of Instructional Philosophy, he rants about universities and how they work. He wrote, "There is political turf fighting, ignoble actions, pettiness, insularity. These halls are best reserved not for those short in moral character, but for those who intend to mold it." Of course, as previously mentioned, Tony's positive student reviews were listed near the top of the page. This positivity wouldn't outweigh what would happen next during his classes, though. One woman was attending Tony's business course at ECU in 2016 when things quickly started to go downhill. Much like the other female students before her, Tony quickly took an interest in her. One day she was in class, Tony felt that her boobs were looking particularly magical. He walked up to her and told her that if she wore a shirt that showed that much cleavage for the rest of the semester, she'd get an A for sure. She, along with the other students in the room that heard what he said, were appalled and pretty grossed out. She reported the whole thing to the university administration. After that, Tony never returned to class. He resigned from his teaching job at ECU completely on January 17, 2017. With his long stint at ECU now over, he wasn't feeling as dejected as you might assume. On the contrary, he felt that this would be the perfect time to do what he had always wanted to do, move to Las Vegas. He did just that, and upon moving to the Vegas area, Tony started working at Roseman University of Health Sciences, a private 4-year school in Henderson in 2018. He would go on to work there for the next few years, seemingly enjoying his time there as an adjunct professor of business. However, he would be struck with grief when the school abruptly decided to discontinue their MBA program, leaving him without a job. He was let go in June of 2022. This quick and anticlimactic termination would haunt him for the rest of his life. Tony would never get over it. In fact, his rage regarding the incident only continued to grow over time. Desperate to stay in the Vegas area, Tony started applying to be a professor at all sorts of schools throughout Nevada. One of these schools was the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, UNLV for short. This application, though, along with all the others he sent, were completely unsuccessful. Tony's anger continued to grow. He began to plot carrying out his revenge in one way or another, but he wasn't quite sure on how he would do it. It seems that by July 2022, though, he started to formulate a plan. He went out and bought himself a handgun. From that point onward, he would buy some more supplies for his gun little by little over time, like magazines and a whole load of ammunition. Tony started to prepare a list of his targets. This list consisted of anyone that he wanted revenge against, mainly people that he had met through work over the years. Many of them were his colleagues from East Carolina University. Some were his rival professors, and others were some high-up faculty members that he felt were giving him trouble. On November 5th, 2023, Tony pulled up to the UNLV campus in his car and parked somewhere in the parking lot, scoping out the school. It isn't known why Tony had decided that of all the schools he applied to, UNLV would be a prime target for his revenge.
why did he do that? Because he was into it with the people at ECU. Not even into it, but like that's who you had on the paper. So what are you actually talking about, bro?
Especially considering that most people on his target list were back
Exactly.
at ECU over half a continent away. UNLV was far from the only school that he had applied to that had rejected his application. For whatever reason, though, he decided that he would make this school the site of his revenge plan. By December, Tony was really left at the end of his rope. You might think that a man in his late 60s who worked as a professor for over 25 years would have probably saved up quite a bit of money to coast on for probably the rest of his life, but that was not the case. Tony was running completely dry on funds. Not only had he received an eviction notice, but he was also $75,000 in debt to various different credit card companies. Not only that, but Tony had failed to develop any sort of social life in the area, talking to virtually nobody outside of the swinger and sugar daddy websites he would use to try and find women. Every once in a while he would pay for a prostitute to come visit him at his house, where he had a closet full of outfits that he had prepared for them to wear, but he didn't seem to know anyone in the city in any meaningful capacity. Tony decided that he would write letters to everyone he hated in his personal life. This wasn't something he only did to let off steam, as he fully intended to send the letters. He sent them to over 40 people throughout the country, with many of them containing personal messages as to why he hated the person so much. The contents of the letters were very angry to say the least, and more or less explain much of Tony's
sending personal hate mail. My man's is off his rocker, chat. He's completely lost it.
motivations. Throughout the letters, he seemed completely obsessed with his IQ, using it to either show off or insult any other associates. Despite having lost everything else in his life, at least he could say he was smart, he felt. Ironically though, while doing so, he both used terrible grammar and spelling, making it hard to even understand his point at times. One letter read, "You arrogant, preppy, rich, spoil-ass, smart-mouthed scold, you post incomplete on me 160 IQ UGA PhD student in seminar just to make him beg you for the grade." Another said, "Me 160 IQ already with UG degree in statistics. Some master's classes in stats also." With another yet reading, "You wreck career and life of genius doctor 160 IQ and ethical professor praised by several thousand of ECU students with your pile of paperwork lies." And another saying, "You run national advertisements, say you need instructor of management. Then you ignore all the highly qualified faculty from across the country. Dr. 160 IQ apply. He would vastly benefit your students." Tony's hatred for his associates was very real. Many of the letters were nothing more than profanity and insults without much specific substance. One in particular read, "Your shit-for-brains, ununionized, third-tier dean frat boy Stan Eakins and his crew at ECU criminally forced about 18 tenured faculty of age to abandon their tenure using straight-up lying paperwork and lying students and threats to destroy their healthcare by firing them, just so he could go window shopping for new faculty that might do more useless research to please you fucks at AACSB." In some of the letters, he referenced violent urges he had in the past, such as when he wrote to one associate, "Here's the big fuck you that you earned over the 17 years you constantly victimized and targeted me and abused me, you evil, psycho-medicated weasel. You just damn lucky I had the decency to leave town instead of coming to your house to settle up our business." Toward the end of the letters, he made a much more general message about his grievances. As you can see from these few examples above, 99+% of higher education, once a noble of endeavors, has morphed into an absolute corrupt scam, a massive sewer where average people with zero moral compass, amoral grifters, compose themselves as expert professors and valuable administrators, and do little while collecting a lifetime shitload of salary and fat benefits with almost no chance of ever being fired. Faculty, staff, administrators all care nothing about students or education, despite all their cover claiming so loudly that they do. The ultimate attitude in universities about students is they paid their fees so they get their Bs. Almost 90% of all undergraduate students get either an A or a B in their class, even though C is supposed to be the average grade. So mommy and daddy and student can all peacock and strut that they got above average grades and look up to the institution their entire lifetimes. Universities and colleges have become the ultimate grift, advertising what they offer as a 4-year, 5-star vacation resort for undergraduates, instead of advertising what ought to be a demanding intellectual experience that improves students and society. Boasting a tax-free status, while raking in tons of tuition borrowed from naive students who will never be able to pay it back, donations from brainwashed alumni as well as, in the case of private elite institutions, from well-intentioned but gullible people of wealth, and, in the case of public institutions, a shitload of taxpayer money. All of it is used to endlessly and expand the cushy and grossly overpaid power bases and facilities of their mediocre faculties, staffs, and administrators. Rather than end the letters on that note, something that a lot of people could probably agree with, he made a bizarre play instead. Instead of end on his major motivations, he decided to end the letters on a rant about Geico Insurance. It seems that at some point Tony had wrecked his car and the company had refused to pay the full amount to have the car repaired. He wrote, "Geico doesn't pay claims. I just parked my wrecked car by a major intersection and put a sign on it that says just that, so you will lose thousands of customers." Tony went out and mailed all of the letters, most of which were in generic greeting cards made for birthdays or anniversaries. Using his interest in anthrax, he decided to include some sort of white powder in the envelopes. While whatever he used was later deemed to be harmless, it definitely gave those who opened it a bit of a scare. In yet another bizarre move, Tony decided to upload the contents of these letters to his personal website as well, under a link called Content.
Is that legal? Is that legal? Can you like anthrax prank people? What the hell, Chad? That's crazy. What the hell is wrong with my sounds, bro?
Of envelopes, anyone out there was able to download a PDF file containing all of the letters he had sent to all of these different people. However, likely realizing that this would probably get him reported to the police before he was even able to carry out any sort of attack, he quietly deleted the download link later with no explanation. And then came the day. On December 6, 2023, Tony Polito pulled up to the UNLV campus at around 11:30 a.m. He made his way over to the Frank and Estella Beam Hall, one of the main instructional buildings for the school and notably the primary building for their business program. With finals coming up, many of the students were outdoors socializing while their professors were inside preparing for the upcoming exams. Tony, meanwhile, was approaching in a long dark coat with a Taurus 9mm handgun and 11 fully loaded magazines in his pockets.
Oh, wow.
Tony walked inside the building and made his way up to the 4th floor. This is where he pulled out his gun and started shooting wildly. An alarm started to sound all throughout the building, with many students frantically screaming that there was a man with a gun. Students and teachers locked themselves into classrooms and offices as Tony made his way through the 4th, 3rd, and then 2nd floors of the building, shooting at anyone he came across. Many of the students reported hearing flurries of gunshots followed by screams of pain all throughout the building. Many people in the building, at least a dozen, made calls to the police as the school itself posted a message to Twitter saying that the police were on their way, warning students at the Beam Hall to evacuate to a safe area if they were able. 15 minutes after Tony first parked his car at the school, the police were on their way to Beam Hall. Only 1 minute after the original call was placed, at least one officer was on scene. The police made their way into the building and quickly came across Tony, calmly walking through in his long coat. The police, though, having no description of the killer, thought that the 67-year-old man was likely only a bystander. They shouted at him from a second-story balcony, telling him to get out of the area. Tony said nothing as he began to quickly walk towards the door, leaving the building. By this point, Tony had shot and killed 3 people in the building, as well as wounded 1 other. He left the building at 11:55 a.m., but he wasn't done just yet. He started making his way to the student union, very likely hoping to kill as many students as he could. However, this was when the police outside realized that he was the shooter. They chased Tony down as he pulled his gun on them. He shot and wounded 2 police officers as they returned fire on him. Tony was shot 6 times, being hit in the leg, the elbow, the stomach, chest, neck, and finally directly in the face. Tony died on the spot. With Tony out of the picture, the police then assembled a few teams together to search the building for victims or possibly more shooters. They had to force their way into many of the rooms where students and teachers had barricaded the doors. It wasn't long before they came across the 3 victims that Tony had shot. These 3 were Patricia Navarro-Valdez and Chae-Jon Jerry Chung, 2 business school professors who had been present at the time, and an associate professor named Nakao Takemaru, who taught Japanese studies. The wounded victim was found as well, only said to have been a 38-year-old visiting professor with critical injuries. Luckily, he was treated at the hospital and came to survive the attack. The 2 police officers injured in the shootout were treated at the hospital as well. The police were able to determine that Tony had burned through at least 2 of the full magazines that he had brought to school, with 9 of them still being found on his person. They took his body in for an autopsy, where it was found that he had a significant amount of oxycodone in his system at the time, along with a load of erectile dysfunction medication. The police came across Tony's target lists, which he had brought into the school.
What? He on Viagra and opiates? That's a crazy combination.
None of the victims that day were actually on his list, given that most of them still worked at ECU, making it a mystery as to why he even took the list with him in the first place. UNLV set up a reunification center in the North Hall of the Las Vegas Convention Center and set up an emergency hotline. Classes were canceled for the rest of the week, and the subject of whether or not to even hold finals was discussed. It was soon announced that finals would be canceled after all. The nearby College of Southern Nevada also closed its campuses as well. Highways were shut down in order to allow first responders into the area. The Harry Reid International Airport was even shut down for a brief period of time due to possible security threats. The 2 police officers who got into the shootout with Tony, Detective Nathaniel Drum and Officer Damian Garcia, were later hailed as heroes by the police chief during a conference around the attack. Meanwhile, the FBI and the ATF were called in to assist the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department in the investigation. The police pulled up to Tony's apartment and announced over a loudspeaker that they would be entering, not knowing if anyone was still inside. They threw 2 flashbangs into the room before storming in. Luckily, they found that nobody was there. They did find Tony's eviction notice, as well as a lot more ammunition. The detectives were a bit bewildered when they came across all of the dresses that Tony kept for prostitutes in his closet, citing their vast quantity as being of interest. Tony also had a lot of sex tapes of these encounters, with the police saying that it wasn't clear if the women had consented to being recorded. It later came to appear that they likely hadn't, as they found numerous instructions on how to install spy cameras. They took several of his computers and extra hard drives. At the same time, many of the letters Tony sent were being discovered across the country. On dozens of his devices, they found files about UNLV along with his failed job applications and maps of Beam Hall. They also found a good amount of folders with information about the faculty, mainly from news articles and public records. One of the folders, called Devil Bosses, contained information about the people he felt had likely denied his application. The police soon came across a chair with an arrow taped to it. This arrow was pointing downward towards a document lying in the seat, something that the police said was basically Tony's last will and testament. At first, the police weren't quite sure as to what Tony's motives for the attack were, but it became more clear fairly quickly once the letters came to light. The police said, based on interviews, Polito's perceived superiority and dissatisfaction with the lack of appreciation for his talents were likely aggravating factors. Those closest to him noted his frustration with his lack of employment in Las Vegas. Paul Whittington, the student who had previously attended Tony's classes at ECU and spoke of his time there, said that once he heard a former teacher from ECU carried out a shooting in Las Vegas, he immediately knew who it must be. He said, "My immediate reaction was it had to be Tony Polito. I didn't say that because I thought he was capable of anything like that. I didn't say that because I thought that's the kind of person he was. I said that because my entire time in class he was obsessed with Las Vegas." The mayor of Las Vegas at the time, Carolyn Goodman, said that the shooting was tragic and heartbreaking. A few senators, Jackie Rosen and Catherine Cortez Masto, urged their constituents to avoid going to the area. After the shooting, the Vegas Golden Knights team held a moment of silence before starting their match against the St. Louis Blues at the T-Mobile Arena. They continued to honor the victims for a few more matches as well, even wearing t-shirts with their names at various events. Because of the shooting, the National Finals Rodeo canceled their kickoff and held a moment of silence during their next match as well. The Las Vegas Raiders followed suit, doing very much the same. Shortly after the attack, LinkedIn memorialized Tony Polito's page. It isn't known who or why the decision was made to do so. After a load of backlash, they swiftly deleted his page entirely.
Exactly, okay.
Now, Tony is mainly remembered by his students as the oddball professor who hit on girls, bragged about his Vegas trips, and snapped after being fired. His previously positive student reviews have definitely been tainted over time by the knowledge of what he did. Over time, many of his students have remembered more and more behavior that they feel in hindsight at the time they should have felt was more suspicious.
Alright, so yeah, tell me what you think in the comments, man. Like, share, subscribe. Hey, that's gonna do it for this video. On to the next chat. Here we go. Oh damn, I already got it highlighted. Check me out. This video is going to be called Anthony Anderson is one of the biggest creeps in Hollywood. You know, this is a hot take because I actually rocked with Anthony Anderson. I mean, I watched a little bit of Blackish. He was in Kangaroo Jack. Romeo Must Die. Like man, nah, he was cold, bro. He was cold. I mean, I think he's a talented dude, but apparently he got a darker side. So let's get right into it, chat.
No, I don't have a boyfriend.
She's single, but looking.
But I'm illegal for people that are old.
Well, you know, some men like them young. We ain't gonna mention no names, but, you know, I'm one of them.
Bro, what? Yo, what? He said, what? What is this?
Man, it is Black Balloon, and I'm coming back with another video, man, so y'all already know what's going on. Now, I never seen this clip. Raise your hand if today is the first time you seen this clip. Now, I saw it about a week ago, but I'm just now getting to it. This clip was going viral on TikTok, right? Maybe, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago, maybe. Because back in July, Anthony Anderson and his team actually responded to this clip, making its way back around the internet.
Come on.
Because this happened in 2003. Mind you.
Hold on, chat. Hold on. Look at her face, bro. She is so uncomfortable right now. Oh my God. She is, oh my God. It's the cringiest smile I've ever seen. And he's just yucking it up. He just, oh my God. Full jubilation. And she's literally smiling the pain away.
Anthony Anderson and his team actually responded to this clip, making its way back around the internet, because this happened in 2003. Mind you, Anthony Anderson was 33 years old and Lindsay Lohan was 17.
Bro.
This man says the wildest shit I have ever heard so blatantly on a television show. Hopefully this doesn't have any kind of copyright. Right. And we can actually show it because he actually puts his hand on her knee.
Come on, man. Play the clip.
Right here, she's 17, young, and he's 33. And if I'm not mistaken, Anthony Anderson has some sexual charges against him a couple years ago. But check this out. This ain't that much of old news. They just came out over the summer and responded to this clip. This shit is crazy. Check this out, y'all.
Come on.
You're sick.
Come on. Buffer, do whatever you gotta do.
Just kiss me on the lips with tongue?
I didn't kiss you on the lips.
Somebody bring me some rubbing alcohol. You're sick and you just kiss me on the lips with tongue?
I didn't kiss you on the lips.
Somebody bring me some. I digress. My children and I, we love you and The Parent Trap. I just want to give that to you.
Oh, what a creep, bro.
And, you've grown up a whole lot since then. You're only 17.
Yeah.
Are you driving yet?
Yes.
Can you drive?
Yes. The same things.
Speaking of pink.
Uh-oh.
I have something I'd like to add to your collection. It's pink, it's satiny, and it's me.
Oh my God.
It's me. To Lindsay, from me. There you go.
Well, this is going to go right on my bed. And when I see you, I will say hi because I'll see your face every
Thank
night.
you, baby. Now, aside from entertaining me in your room and in your house, what gentleman will be at the new pad with you and Raven Simone?
No one.
I'm just talking about, like parties,
No, I don't
get
have a
together.
boyfriend. I don't.
She's single, but looking.
But I'm illegal for people that are.
Real
Well,
talk.
some men like young. We ain't gonna mention no names, but I'm one of them.
That's not funny, bro.
Now,
That's not
this
funny.
big-headed, big-bearded, former fat boy is
Bro,
one
what?
nasty-ass man. From the moment that
This is
interview
real?
started, he was completely inappropriate with a 17-year-old girl.
Absolutely.
And back in the summer, they tried to come out and
What
say
is
that
this
it was
about?
meant to be comedy. It was meant to be all jokes. When just a year after that, he faced his first,
This ain't it,
sexual
bro.
assault charge. Actress alleging assault from Anthony Anderson in an elevator. But y'all, this man started the interview saying she kissed him on the lips, put his hands on her knee and said, "You've grown up since then." She was only 17 years old, y'all, in that interview. That she's grown up a lot since Parent Trap. The most horrifying of it all ended that clip with
Yeah, we
saying
saw it, bro. We saw it. That's
funny
crazy,
or,
bro.
It's
not funny.
comedy is that when you're saying it to a 17-year-old. You're asking a 17-year-old girl who at that time was living with Raven Simone, what kind of guys are they going to have at their house? He literally asked her, I don't even think he asked, was she, living with her parents just to know. I think he was trying to plot,
Real talk.
trying to make sure she living alone so he might be able to slide one day.
This is
33 years
creepy,
old.
bro.
I mean, look at Anthony Anderson. He done got so skinny, head so big. He got that bobblehead effect going on right now. And look, this is an old picture of Anthony Anderson right here. I can just look at him and you can tell he nasty. You can tell he a little predator. Look at them shoes. Got that
Damn,
little
you say
old
look at the
Nokia. This is a
shoes.
real old picture right here. I can just see it over Anthony
Damn,
Anderson.
that's Anthony
You
Anderson
can
now?
see that he was a nasty guy. He still is.
This nigga skinny as
Being
hell
accused
now.
of, assault so many times. Ain't
What?
these women just ain't out here making this stuff up.
Bro,
And
this
I was
nigga
honestly
got
kind of mind blown
skinny.
when I saw that clip of him and Lindsay Lohan. I never seen that. I ain't see that when I was a child. I ain't see that growing up. Nothing. He is gonna host the Emmys, and they were trying to get him banned from hosting the Emmys, so all of the freaky stuff and assault charges were coming back around
That's
because they were like,
crazy,
why would the
bro.
producers hire him to host the Emmys? So
No.
clearly that's where it came from. People just started digging this stuff up. Now, I want to play y'all this next clip of the lady who talks about him assaulting her on the elevator.
All right, let's
I
play
didn't
it.
think it was going to be this long. But Anthony Anderson, he tells a story where he talks about going to a hotel with Prince.
Man,
Check
come on.
out this clip about the assault that happened on the elevator. All right,
I know what to do.
check this out.
We were signing posters for the movie because the movie was out,
Mm-hmm.
and we were done. So we were staying in a hotel, all of us, everybody. It was just, they were sending different cast members out to different cities to promote. And I was paired with this person because we were both sort of easy, off the cuff, and funny. Like we could just go back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So it made it interesting. It was just sort of like a meet and greet. We were signing posters. We were all done. And I never forget what I had on. I had on a jean jumpsuit that zipped up the front.
Okay.
And we were done. We've been out there for hours. Going back in the hotel, Vegas hotels, it's a lot of floors. And we were like near the top of the floor. We were both all staying on the same floor. And I was in the elevator, and he had two male friends that were in town just to see, hang out and whatever. But, you worked with someone, and then you've been doing promotion with this person. You think that's your friend, and you're very comfortable.
Right.
So getting in the elevator with him and his two friends in a Vegas elevator to go, 42 floors up
Right.
wasn't a thing. We were just
Right.
talking in there, and he looked at his friend, and his friend pushed the emergency stop. And he said, "You're going to finally give me what I want."
Really?
I thought he was kidding. I'm not. I started laughing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget, I had really high heels on.
Mm-hmm.
And he came at me to try to unzip my,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I caught his hand right here. And I was like, no, you're not going to unzip a big guy.
Okay.
Pushed me back, tried to unzip it. We were fighting now with my zipper because I realized now
his
we ain't
friend is
playing.
in there watching.
Two friends.
2 friends are watching this. Wow.
And kept
What
the
a
elevator
sick
from moving.
bastard, bro.
And people I guess are trying to make it move again because they're on different floors. So it would start moving and they would stop it again. We were fighting with the zipper. He got the zipper down and tried to pull it off of my body. Now we're fighting. We're both sweating. And I was like, "You not going, no."
Right.
And we fought and we fought. And we went up and down. I'll never forget. We stopped on a floor, opened up, and there was a bunch of people trying to get in the elevator. And his 2 friends stood in front of the door and said, "You're not getting on this elevator." And he got my jumpsuit off of me, like the top of me, but it was still on my waist. I got out on our floor. I managed to get out on our floor. He jumped up. Like I said, I had on really high heels. He's tried to stop me by tackling me. He jumped on my back. And you know how like those long halls in the casino?
Yeah.
I carried him on my back, fighting,
Ain't no
till I got to
way,
my room and I
bro.
started banging on my door. And I was screaming all the way. But it's Vegas. You
Right.
ain't screaming in the hallway.
Right.
And my fiance at the time came out.
Mm.
He was in the room next to our room.
Mm.
He jumps off, goes to his room, and now we are looking a mess, both of us. I just pushed him back in the door. We went in our room and I told him what happened. And he said, "I'm going next door." And I was like, "I don't want you to go next door. I don't know what I want to do, but I don't want you to do that because that's going to end up in a fight." He goes
Yeah.
next door anyway.
Absolutely.
He
As he should.
denied
Absolutely.
everything that
As he
happened,
should.
but he saw me.
Yeah.
He saw. He
Ain't no
knew.
denying.
He knew.
He shouldn't even been talking.
No,
it's
he
on
was.
site.
He talked.
on site.
He talked
It's on
through it.
site.
Yeah, it didn't
Yeah.
happen. He talked through it. Came back over about an hour later, and he said, he's gonna leave you alone. And I was like, okay.
Now, a lot of people
Man,
Don't
his
really
head
believe-
would have been in a goddamn toilet, chat.
believe what she said because she took a long time to come out and tell her story. But, I mean, it's kind of 50-50. A lot of people, when I was checking comments, really believe what she said. And shoot, I believe her. Because if you that bold to do it in front of your friends, I mean, y'all have done it before and, you just didn't get caught or didn't get out the times that you did. A lot of these people, that we've been learning over the years, this is common practice, especially with people in the industry. And sometimes I'll see a lot of comments like, "Oh, why are you always covering black entertainers or this and that?" It's not even that. I've covered them all. Small, big, and tall, white, brown, black, and blue. I've covered them all. But it's never
That's crazy.
started YouTube. It's for white. You won't be able to escape the things that you did in the dark. Now, this next clip, this is one of those ones where I found this one, and it probably had only 3 comments. Very strange story of the middle of the night, 4 o'clock in the morning, to eat pizza and pasta. I said, hold on now. Is they talking about what I think they talking about? Because Prince was at this hotel too, along with Tavis Smiley and others. And he said in the middle of the night, 4 o'clock in the morning, they're eating pasta and pizza. And we just started this video with him saying he likes them young. So you could put 2 and 2 together as we go ahead and check this clip out.
Went to this after-hour spot after the concert, a place called Village Underground in the village.
Oh, it's famous.
Yeah, and so, because Prince likes to jam afterwards. Well, Prince just went to go listen to the musicians. And so it's Prince, his assistant, myself. And I see Prince lean over to his assistant. And then all of a sudden the assistant leans over to me and says, I don't know why I do this voice, but it's like, Prince wants you to come back and have pasta and pizza. I was like, oh, okay. And then Prince got up and left, and she got up and left. I don't know why her voice is so deep, because it was a woman. She got up and she left.
You were summoned.
Yes.
You were summoned by royalty.
And I show up at the Ritz-Carlton. There's a doorman there with a key. And it was like, Miss Anderson, Prince is on floor 42, and the room number is 4206. I was like, okay. Gave me my key, put me in this private elevator. I went up, put the key in the door. The door opened. I had my wife with me. We walked in. I was like, oh. And there was, an array of people in the living room. And I went back to find Prince, and he was back there holding court with Tavis Smiley and Cornel West. And he looked up and like smiled and gave me the peace sign. And I went back in, and we had pasta and pizza at 4 o'clock in the morning.
How did Prince like his pizza? This is very important. The toppings
first off,
is a window into one's soul.
First off, there was no meat on the pizza, and I didn't see Prince eat any pizza. We would go to his house, man, for the house parties. I would say Prince was a vegan, and so he had his chef prepare. You'll be at the house, and it'd be Stevie Wonder playing the piano, Malcolm Jamal Warner on bass, Rochelle Farrell singing lead, Harry Connick Jr. playing bongos. No, that was Matthew McConaughey. Yeah, Matthew McConaughey. I'm sorry, I get him confused sometimes. But it was just amazing, man. And then it's like 5 o'clock in the morning, his chef is serving you breakfast.
I'll leave that one up for y'all to decide what you think about that. Notice he mentioned Malcolm Jamal Warner, who's now dead. The entire interview is about Prince, who's been dead. And just, the common Hollywood circle of, at the time, people would never have thought they would die the way that they did. In the form of those dark Hollywood rituals. And Anthony Anderson, somebody who basically spent his entire adult life in Hollywood, is no different from the rest of them. And it seems like he was involved in things with the little ones. Because, y'all know, I mean, maybe I'm reaching. Maybe we all, when we hear that word pizza, especially pizza and pasta at 4 a.m., with all kind of people from Hollywood, when we hear that word, we automatically get to thinking, all right, now.
What's the deal? What's the deal with that?
That's just automatic.
All right, so yeah, that's the video, y'all. Tell me what you think. Like, comment, subscribe, and we're about to move on to the next one. Yeah. All right, this is going to be the last video of the day, chat. Here we have the deranged mass serial killer who became a meme. His name is Patrick Crusius. That sounds like it's just not working, huh?
As a deranged young boy grew up threatening his classmates in clearly violent ways, nobody really wanted anything to do with him. Even despite everything he had done, they still never expected him to become the monster he turned out to be when he set his sights on committing one of the deadliest attacks in US history. Time and time again, we see a lot of cases where the perpetrator really checks a lot of boxes in hindsight. It could be mental illness, social isolation, interaction with terrible communities, or even all of the above. Most of the time, though, to the people around them, a lot of the warning signs are so spread apart that they go unnoticed or unseen entirely. In this case, though, the mental decline seemed to start happening from a very young age, so let's start at the very beginning. Patrick Wood Crusius was born on July 27th of 1998. Being of German and Italian descent, he was known to have lived in Allen, Texas for the majority of his life. His relationship with his family was rocky.
Hey, ain't Allen, Texas one of the most racist cities in the world? I mean, in the country? I believe it's Allen, Texas. That's what Gideon went to, right?
As, while growing up, his father was very big on drugs and alcohol. To be specific, he had a good appetite for abusing benzos, antidepressants, Vicodin, and different ADHD drugs. His father got to the point where his behavior was so bad that his wife basically banished him to live upstairs in the home alone, away from the rest of his family until he got it together. Eventually, Patrick's parents came to divorce when he was about 13 years old. By now, he was described as being a lonely kid who mainly stuck to his computer to keep himself occupied. His struggles weren't only external ones with his family, but also internal. He was, at one point, diagnosed with a schizoaffective disorder. Throughout the majority of his schooling, he was described to have severe lifelong neurological and mental disabilities that caused him to be in some form of special education for the majority of his schooling. Eventually, it came time to move on to high school. After he began to attend Liberty High in Frisco and later Plano Senior High, the other students immediately began to feel that something was off about him. One former classmate said that he mainly sat alone at the back of the bus before and after school. He seemed to hate the popular kids, often going on rants to himself about anyone who played any sports or joined the school band. He was described as standoffish, with it being said that he didn't really interact with anyone beyond the bare minimum. Patrick had a sister, and a good portion of his interactions would come from her and her friends. He would sometimes walk to school with his sister and her friends, but he would usually walk either far ahead or far behind them, keeping to himself and not saying a word to them. One of these friends later said, he wouldn't talk to people. No one really knew him. While in class, he was described as being very strong-minded, almost arrogant, with it being said that he would try to take charge of the classroom despite his usually timid attitude. However, he would only grow angry when other students would refuse to listen to him. They wouldn't even work with him on group projects, saying that
he had that like main character energy that they show in the Disney movies, but it's like, nah, bro, sit your ass down.
He was too angry and irritable. To make matters worse, the other kids would often pick on him because he spoke in a strange manner and wore what appeared to be very old hand-me-down clothes. One student said that when he was in English class with Patrick, quote, "Every time I looked up in class, it was someone new speaking negatively to the kid. Patrick, that is dumb, stupid." At one point in high school, Patrick ran away from home. It seems that he couldn't take the home life or school any longer. His family reported him missing to the police. However, they were surprised to see him returning home from his runaway in less than 30 minutes, leading to them calling the police to tell them to forget about the whole thing. Still though, Patrick came to graduate from high school in 2017, moving on to a community college shortly after. Attending Collin College, he decided to move in with his grandparents for a change of pace. His grandparents allowed him to live there as long as he followed some very basic rules, like not leaving the house late at night and not being on his computer all the time. While the first rule would be easy for Patrick, he wasn't going to follow the second one so closely. Around this time, he only grew more invested in the online side of his life. Patrick decided to look for a job, making a LinkedIn profile for himself. However, it's unclear why exactly he made this account, as the profile he chose to write only painted him in the most negative light possible. Saying that he was working as a bagger at a supermarket, he wrote, "I'm not really motivated to do anything more than what's necessary to get by. Working in general sucks." He then wrote, "I spend about 8 hours every day on the computer, so that counts toward technology experience, I guess," saying that he was mainly seeing what tech-related jobs might fall into his lap. Under his skills, he wrote, "Nothing really." Trying to get a girlfriend, Patrick began to ask out girls that he had previously gone to school with. However, given the little list that he had written in high school, that wasn't going to work out so well in his favor. He got an account on Instagram and asked out one girl that he went to middle and high school with. She ignored his message, saying that it didn't seem like a good idea. After all, little did he know, she was one of the students who reported him to school staff, saying, "I had to go to the teacher because he would jokingly tell girls he was going to kill them."
Bro, that's crazy. That's not a joke, bro.
Patrick made an account on most of the average forms of social media, like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Like a lot of people these days, he mainly used these platforms to spew an endless stream of politics to anyone who would listen. At first, he just seemed like an average Republican, sharing a lot of posts that most people wouldn't find to be anything out of the ordinary. He was political for sure, but at first it was nothing really hateful or controversial. This wouldn't last for too long, though. As Patrick began to see a demographic shift in his hometown, he began to grow hateful. While he was younger, the population in Patrick's hometown was about 83% white. However, now in adulthood, that had shifted. With growing Latin and Asian populations, the percentage of white people fell to about 59%. Patrick, for whatever reason, hated seeing this. When Donald Trump ran for office in 2016, Patrick became a huge fan pretty quickly. He started going crazy with politics all over social media, posting hashtags like "Build the Wall," "No Sanctuary Cities," "Keep Gitmo Open," and "Ban Syrian Refugees" everywhere he would go. More concerningly, he began to use a photo of Dylan Roof, a man from South Carolina who shot up the Charleston church in a bid to kill as many black people as possible. Admiring killers like Dylan Roof, Patrick wanted to get some gear of his very own. He went out and bought a GP WASR-10 semiotic rifle. Online, he ended up purchasing about 1,000 hollow point bullets after researching what kind of ammunition would be the most devastating during an attack. Even his own mother found this to be very concerning. She herself called the police and warned them about her son's gun ownership. She said that due to his age, maturity level, and lack of experience with guns, she was very concerned about his safety. She was transferred to a public safety officer. This officer then asked her if her son had ever threatened to harm anyone else or himself. She said that she didn't believe that he did. So this officer simply provided her with some common information. They told her, due to her son's age and description, he was well within his legal rights to purchase the weapon and there wasn't a whole lot that she or they could do about it. Before Patrick's mother even gave the police her son's name, the call was concluded. The police later said, "This was not a volatile, explosive, erratic-behaving kid. It's not like alarm bells were going off." All throughout this time, Patrick was getting more and more involved with a website called 8chan. If you haven't heard of it, I'm sure you've at least heard of 4chan. 8chan has been arguably seen as a more extreme version of 4chan. While normally it was also just a bunch of different image boards, each image board was moderated by its own creator with very little oversight from the administrators. This led to a lot of chaos and, eventually, extremism. The site was known for promoting extremist views, celebrating mass killers, and hosting a lot of child material. As a result of all of this controversy, Google itself started to filter 8chan out of its own search engines back in 2015. However, that really didn't do anything to deter the current users from visiting the website. If anything, it only made it into that much more of an echo chamber with few new users actually coming in. Once the Christchurch mosque shooting happened in 2019, the killer, Brenton Tarrant, became a pretty popular figure among certain boards on the site. Image macros were spread that encouraged other users to beat Brenton's high score, i.e. his kill count. As Patrick got deeper into 8chan, he started browsing the website for hours each day. He enjoyed being in a place where so many other people shared his extreme views. As he became more involved, he came to admire mass killers much more than he ever did before. While he had always wanted to kill people as far back as middle and high school, he was heavily considering carrying out some sort of attack on his own now. He began to research what kind of gear he might want to use in such an attack even more. In addition to the gun he had bought, he also got himself some heat-resistant gloves to use with it, as per the advice of other forum users. Patrick began to spend a lot of time searching for Brenton Tarrant's manifesto, wanting to read what he had to say firsthand. Although he couldn't find it himself, his sister was able to. She sent it to him, not understanding why he wanted it so badly. Once he read it, he was inspired in the worst way possible. Patrick wanted to do the same thing himself. While he didn't really seem to share the same hatred for Muslims, he could see him carrying out an attack on the Hispanic people that he hated so much. He wanted to start off by writing a manifesto of his very own. He titled this manifesto The Inconvenient Truth, a title likely ripped off from the documentary of a similar name about global warming. The manifesto was, more or less, a giant rant about politics. Contrary to what you might think, Patrick criticized both Democrats and Republicans throughout the manifesto, seemingly being more anti-government and anti-corporate in general. While he claims to have felt that way since before Trump's presidency, he admitted that his views had gotten even stronger. The roughly 2,300-word document served as a rough explanation of his views on racial issues, economic issues, and how he felt the country should be governed. The 4-page manifesto was divided into 6 sections, those being About Me, Political Reasons, Economic Reasons, Gear, Reactions, and Personal Reasons and Thoughts. In the first section, About Me, Patrick quickly explained that he supported the Christchurch shooter and his manifesto. He explains that he doesn't want the white people of the United States to wind up like the Native Americans did before them, saying that he's here to stop a Hispanic invasion. Under the next section, Political Reasons, he blames both sides of the political spectrum for allowing corporations within America to run amok. He feared that, due to the rising Hispanic population, the Democratic Party would soon become the only political party in the United States and that no election would matter again. He says that even Republicans are at fault for being so pro-corporation, but acknowledges that some Republicans may not be. He says that, at the least, the Republicans are the lesser of two evils simply because they are anti-immigration. Throughout the next section, Economic Reasons, Patrick explained that immigration is the biggest crisis the US is currently facing. While he says that he acknowledges that migrants perform a lot of unskilled labor, he says that their kids don't, worrying him that this will lead towards more and more migrants being taken in being a necessity. He then talks about the environment being ruined, saying that the Lorax is a great way to understand the problem easily. He says that the only way to lessen the burden on the environment is for America to contain less people in general. In the next section, Gear, Patrick simply explained the type of weaponry and other items that he had bought in preparation for his attack. He explains why he chose the type of gun and ammunition that he did, with his reasons mainly revolving around overheating. With the heat-resistant gloves he also bought, it seems that he had a strange obsession when it came to the heat issues of firing a gun over all else. The only other issue he even mentions is bullet penetration. This brings us to a section oddly titled Reactions. In this section, he briefly explains that he feels Hispanic people would be more than willing to move back to their home countries if they were given economic incentive. However, he says that he and other people like him will give them another incentive to move home. That, he feels, will reduce the power of the Hispanic voting bloc. This seems to be his main reason for carrying out an attack. Finally, in the last section titled Personal Reasons and Thoughts, Patrick explains that he feels he has no future in his country. He fears that Hispanic people will overthrow Texas right underneath his nose. He says that he doesn't want to end up like Europe, who has no guns and can do nothing but sit by and watch. He says that his actions are without fault and done purely for preservation. He says that the government itself often kills people over much less. He then goes on a rant about race mixing, saying that it's unnecessary and selfish. He says it ruins cultures and creates identity issues. He says that he feels he will inevitably be killed by either the police or by an invader, as he words it. He reminds his readers that it isn't cowardly to pick an attack on an area that he calls low-hanging fruit. He urges anyone like him to pick easier targets in order to carry out larger-scale violence. He predicts the media reaction, saying that they will likely call him a white supremacist, blame Trump, and move on. He says that, although his views predate Trump running for president, he feels that Trump's comments on Mexicans around the 2016 election would be blamed for his entire attack. Rather than trying to defend Trump, he seems almost angry that anyone else could get credit for the attack other than him. He ends the manifesto with, "I am honored to head the fight and reclaim my country from destruction." This brings us to a cloudy Friday night in August of 2019. 1 week after his 21st birthday, Patrick was sitting home alone, unemployed, living off the very welfare that he complained of other people taking. He figured that now was as good of a time as any. He loaded his rifle into the trunk of his car along with his 1,000 hollow point rounds. On top, he carefully placed his protective eye gear, his gloves, and some earmuffs. In the front seat, he carried the other item most important to him, his laptop. Around midnight, Patrick pulled out of the driveway at his grandparents' house in Allen, Texas. He, seemingly completely relaxed, made his way out of the city and onto the highway. He was on a mission, setting out on a 650-mile drive towards El Paso, Texas, wanting to get as near to the Mexican border as possible. Throughout the overnight journey, he stopped twice at different gas stations. Each time he would get an energy drink, refill his gas tank, and then sit in the car browsing 8chan on his laptop for a while. By around 8 a.m. the next morning, Patrick finally arrived in El Paso. He was pretty tired from missing a night of sleep, despite the constant Monster intake. He realized that he was pretty hungry as well. He started driving around El Paso, seemingly with no particular goal in mind. He stopped at a pizzeria that he seems to have visited before, seemingly wanting to get one of his favorite orders one last time. Given that it was still earlier on in the morning, the place was closed, leading to Patrick simply driving off to Walmart. He pulled up to a Walmart near the Cielo Vista Mall on the east side of El Paso. It was now around 9 a.m. and roughly 3,000 people were shopping at the popular Walmart location. Given its close proximity to the border, many people from Mexico would come.
Hold on, chat. Hold on.